This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. I don't know, Clint Pulver. I love it here. I love it here. And I love the fact that you're here. Clint Pulver, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it, David. It's an honor to be here. I've been a big fan of the show for a long time, so this is exciting for me.
So for the folks listening, you are about to be pulverized. Pulverized. I'm sure Clint has never heard that before, ever.
Okay, that's the first time.
First time we've ever used that one.
You're a genius, David.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about the I Love It Here movement. How did you come to the expertise that you have? Give us a little bit of a professional kind of backstory and how you came into the speaking business and specifically the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, so 5 years ago, I was a part of a little mastermind group. We were in New York City meeting with other CEOs and executives. And one particular gentleman that we met with, he owned a sporting good chain of just retail stores. And we're sitting in his store in Manhattan, gorgeous facility. And we're talking about his business and how he's had to adapt. And he had this thick New York accent. And I'll never forget, he said, "You got to adapt or you're going to die." Very profound, very profound. And I agreed with him. And I said, okay. I said, so what about your management style? You felt the need to strategize how you do business. Have you had to change how you manage people? And he said, no. The way I manage today is the same way I managed 20 years ago, and we get results. It was another fairly bold statement. And I remember I looked in the store and all of his employees were my age or younger. And I'm a millennial. I was born in that generation. And I thought for a minute. I said, I wonder if they would say the same thing. I wonder if they would have this wonderful, rosy picture of how great his business really was compared to what he thought was happening. So we had 35 minutes to kill until we went to the next place. I thanked him for his time and I had the time to kill. So I walked up to the first employee that I saw and I just said, I'm just curious, what's it like to work here? And the employee kind of looked around. Got really quiet. It felt like we're doing an illegal drug exchange. And he said, do you really want to know? And I said, yeah. He said, I cannot stand it here. I literally feel like I'm a cog in the wheel. Like it's just a job. And honestly, dude, as soon as I get another opportunity, I'm gone. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I've already applied to 3 other places. And I thought, well, maybe the kid's having a bad day. So I went to the next guy and then the next gal and the other employees. At the end of the conversation, in 35 minutes, I had interviewed 6 of his employees. And at the end of those discussions, 5 out of the 6 of his people said they would not be working for him in his store in less than 3.5 months. That was the moment for me, David, that started my business and started my organization and ultimately kind of springboarded me into the speaking industry. And I started the Undercover Millennial program. And it's kind of like Undercover Boss without the makeup. And I'm a millennial. I'd wear a backwards hat just like I'm wearing normal clothes. And I would walk in as a customer, but ultimately a job applicant that was looking for a job. And we've done that for almost 5 years now. And I have worked with 181 organizations, and Undercover, I have interviewed over 10,000 employees across the globe. And that's what the book's about. So it's my research behind that.
Yeah, no, it's totally amazing. So the premise of this, would you call this sort of secret shopping for employees, for workplaces? What's a good layman's analogy here?
Yeah, for sure. You could call it that. It's more about creating an environment where people could actually just speak the truth. Unfortunately, most managers have no idea they're doing poorly. I talk to a lot of managers and they're like, oh, we're doing great. My employees love me. We're doing wonderful. And then you ask the employees and they're like, I cannot stand the guy, right? Because the perception of what we think as leaders versus the reality is not accurate. And then there's no incentive for an employee to tell you the truth as a manager. Why would I? I don't want to be blacklisted. I don't want to be the dramatic one, but they will tell another millennial. They will tell somebody coming in that's looking for a job. And so again, the point was not to figure out who's going to get fired the next day. The point was to figure out what's the truth. So we can really fight the fire, not the smoke, and provide some real data. Let's move the needle and create a better workplace. That's what it was about.
Wow. So let me ask you this, because in the book, you talk about what managers can do differently, right? These moments of significance, these kind of touch points or flash points where you either get people to say, wow, this is a great place to work, or oh my God, I can't believe this happened again. What are those moments of significance and why are they so important? And let's talk about how that kind of plays out.
I think it translates even to what we do as speakers, right? When we're on the stage, right? We create little moments, an experience where people go, man, that changed for me. That was something that was an aha moment. And I always ask myself as a speaker when I jump on stage, I tell myself that every audience member is asking me as a speaker, let me know when it gets to the part about me. Let me know that when your message and whatever it is that you're about to talk about, let me know when that gets to the part about me. And I think the same thing translated in good management. When they understood that every employee is asking the same question of a manager, let me know when it gets to the part about me.
Yeah.
And some people hear that and they go, well, those entitled little shining stars in my life, right? And it's not so much about entitlement, it's just good speaking. It's good stagecraft. It's good management. And we do, as speakers, we try to create moments where people go, yeah, that got to me. That mattered to me.
Clint, let me ask you, because this is, so, we're going to talk more about the great book that we have coming out. But I also like kind of going behind the scenes a little bit into Clint Pulver land. So a lot of people start out in the speaking business the way that you described, and they kind of, they struggle. They're not sure where to get leads. They're not sure what the best audiences are. They're not sure who has money, who doesn't have money. It seems to me that you just hit it big right out of the gate. And I could be totally wrong about this, but tell us about the early days, because you had this fantastic idea. You had this research-based leadership and management with millennials and what people are doing right, what people are doing wrong, firsthand experience, 10,000 interviews. How did you come on the scene and separate yourself from all the other jokers and clowns who are, quote unquote, millennial experts who really did not have the expertise, did not have the research, did not have the background? How did you differentiate yourself, and how was that climb up to where you are now in the speaking and authoring business?
I think for me, it started by just listening. I think sometimes as speakers or even management or whatever you want to call it, we come out guns a-blazing and we go, I know what you need. I'm a speaker on this. I'm an expert on this. And we have never taken the time to actually ask the customer what they would pay thousands of dollars to hear somebody talk about for an hour. And when I began this, first off, the whole Undercover Millennial program came from me just listening. I just listened to employees. I listened to a manager and I saw that there was a need. And then I shopped it around. I tell every speaker that is getting ready to jump into this industry, or if they have an idea of what they want to talk about, test the market. Go and interview 20 people that could potentially be decision makers. They could maybe be the audience that you would speak to, but ultimately they would be the people that would decide whether they pay you or not to speak. Go in and do the crappy, dirty work that we don't like to talk about that will build a successful career that's based upon market value to the customer, not to you, to the customer. And that was one of the greatest things I did. And I was able to create better marketing, a better speech, better stagecraft, better language that hit the points of what my buyer really wanted. And I think it helped immensely. It still does help immensely.
So direct to buyer or direct to prospect conversations, gold, really, really important. I sometimes say to people, I said, don't worry about what you want to sell. Focus like a crazy person on what they want to buy. Because
Yes,
that's where you make the money, right?
exactly. Yeah, we're in the business of providing value to somebody else. So why would you not take the time to talk to that somebody else about what they want or
Yeah.
consider valuable?
Now let's talk about this original research, because I think this is another area where a lot of speakers, a lot of consultants, a lot of coaches, they go, well, once I'm big and famous, then I'll commission a research study. I'll hire Edison Research and they'll research 20,000 executives. They'll put together the charts and the graphs, and then I'll be a thought leader. You did this old school. I mean, did you record these interviews? Did you have them transcribed? Kind of what was that? Before we got to 10,000, we had to get to like 6 and then 8 and then 40 and then 472. How did you start to collect this body of research, and then how did you initially put it out?
Yeah, so it started with a local group, a local community. So it was called Corporate Alliance. So it started in a group of, it's almost like a networking community of business leaders, CEOs. And I found one person that would let me come in and do research in their organization. And it was eye-opening. So I have a little pen. It's not this pen, but I have a pen that has a little camera and it shoots in 1080p. And I have another camera that's a lapel camera. And I would go in and we would just slip the camera right here and we would record every conversation. We have the ability in certain states can't, but you can record if you protect privacy. And if one person knows that the conversation is being recorded, then legally you are able to do that. We would block out and blot everybody's face so you couldn't see who their face was. If it's a smaller company, we would change their voice or not even show footage. Because again, the goal is not to figure out who needs to be fired, or the goal is to get real feedback. And so I started doing that with one company, and then they had huge success. It was eye-opening, and then they told all of their friends. And it just has literally spread. And then we have gone to other companies like this that have a hub or a network of other CEOs and executives and offered our services so that I can conduct this research. And that is how we were able to collect the 10,000 individuals.
Wow, really, really incredible. Well, let's get back to the research and let's get back to all these great practices and principles and insights from I love it here. I love it here, Clint. I love it here. 4 kinds of managers. Walk us through the 4 kinds of managers.
Yeah, in every organization, you have these 4 types of individuals. And it was really neat because in an organization, we could tell what type of individual they were based off of 2 variables. Number 1 was their standards and expectations of their people. So as a manager, you've got to make a profit, right? Or even as a speaker, you've got to make a profit. You've got to grow. You want to have a business that is developing. So that's one aspect. Then the other side of that was connection. Are you connecting with your people? Are you connecting with the audience? Are you relevant? Are you getting to the part about them? So those are the 2 variables. So the first manager that we found was the removed manager. This is the manager that they should have retired 20 years ago. They're tired, they're burnt out, they're disengaged, so they're low on standards and they're low on connection. What did this create in the workforce? Disengagement. My manager could care less if I show up on time. Why should I show up on time? They become disconnected themselves. The second manager was the buddy manager. This is the manager that wants to be everybody's friend. They wanted to be the homie. This is the manager that went and played Xbox on the weekends with the staff. So they're really high on connection, but they're low on standards. What did this create? Entitlement. This is where the employees became more of the boss than the boss did. Because we're friends. Come on. I know I'm late, but we're tight. We played Xbox on the weekend. Come on. Number 3, though, is the most common, and it's what we call the controlling manager. This is the old command and control style idea of management. High on standards, low on connection. This is the, kind of put your head down, go to work. I don't whine to me. Be glad you have a job. I show you I love you because I give you a paycheck. And so then what did this create? Rebellion, pushback, constantly going toe to toe with a manager instead of shoulder to shoulder. But the magic, David, of all of the research and really the sweet spot of what was so neat to see in the workplace is where a manager became the number 4 manager. And it was what we called the mentor manager. They were equally high on their standards as much as they were on their ability to connect. And what did this create in the workforce? Respect. They weren't always liked, but they were respected. And I called them the mentor manager because when an employee hated their job, David, they talked about the manager. But when they loved their job, they talked about the mentor. They did not talk about the leader. Leadership, management, mentorship. All 3 are different. The leader's kind of, the CEO or the executive. They stand in front and they lead. Where's the direction of the ship going? And how do I get people to follow? That's a leader. Now, the manager is the person that's making sure there's no holes in the ship. How do we get the ship to go faster through the water? But the mentor was the person that was taking care of the people on the ship. Mentorship was not a title. Mentorship had to be earned. And it's a really significant thing that I think we need more of in leadership. Give people a reason to connect with you because of who you are. Great mentors have the ability to connect people to their dreams. And every great story has one. Luke Skywalker had Obi-Wan. Frodo, I like Lord of the Rings. Frodo had Gandalf. Rocky had Mick. Aladdin had the genie, right? These great people that because of who they were, people said, I like myself best because of you. You are the person that will help me get to where I want to go. And again, good management is all about focusing on the individual and helping them to see what's possible. And so those attributes of what allowed a mentor to become a mentor always was the most significant thing in the workplace.
Hey, good looking. Are you currently getting paid to speak? Would you like to ramp that up? We can help. Book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team at doitmarketing.com/call, and let's see what we might do together. The call is free, but the results may be priceless. In your book, you also spell out the 5 Cs of mentorship. Can we kind of dive into that and what that really looks like up close?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to talk about because what makes a mentor, right? Okay, Clint, I get it. It's not a title. It has to be earned. But how do they earn that? And every mentor had these 5 Cs. And I think it's important to kind of think through. I call them the 5 Cs of mentorship. Number 1 is confidence. It's a mindset. I want to mentor with somebody who is confident in who they are and that they can confidently get me to where I want to go. Number 2 is credibility. What's your background? What's your resume? If I'm going to mentor with a speaker, I really actually want to know how many stages you've spoken on. If you're going to teach me how to get on the stage, I want to know your history. And then that leads to number 3 is your competence level. Are you somebody that like back in the 60s, you were like a bigwig speaker? Or are you actually somebody right now who is speaking? I want to mentor from a practitioner, not a theorist. So competence matters. Number 4 is candor. Really interesting point there, because mentors have the ability to create relationships so strong that honesty can exist. I can give you feedback. I'm not here to fluff you up and tell you how amazing you were on stage. I'm going to actually give you real honest feedback because I care about you. And you need to know this in order for you to get where you need to go. And that leads to the 5th C, which is caring. The ability to just care. We go to things like, NSA or places where we go and learn from speakers. That's not mentorship. That's going to a conference and learning from somebody. True mentorship is a relationship where you have a connection with that person and they have a connection with you, where they truly care about you and your business and your success. Those 5 C's are what allowed somebody to become that influential role in another person's life. Confidence, credibility, competence, candor, and the ability to care.
So powerful. Holy smokes. And it's so funny that you mentioned this, Clint. Literally this week, I had an experience where a client came to me and she sent me this email about, hey, David, good news. I closed the deal. I caved on price. I violated my own terms. It's not an ideal client, but hey, I got the check. And then she literally says to me that the closing of the email is literally, she says, all good questions. So she kind of gives me the play-by-play. Looking for an attaboy or an attagirl. And she says, all good, ? And I was like, okay, so I'm the mentor, right? What do I do? Mm-hmm. So candor in your model jumped out at me. And I said, no, this is as far from all good as it could possibly be. Yeah. And I said, you got to stop sabotaging yourself, because I was like, oh, this is going to hurt her feelings. Like, no. This is what she needs to hear. And then my last line of this email was a very short email. It was about confidence. And I said, I'm just a little bit disappointed that I believe in your value more than you do. Because I had the certainty, I had the confidence in this client that, dude, you are shortchanging yourself. They need to pay. You deserve to get paid your full fee. And so I'm just like looking at your checklist here going, damn, okay, so maybe I shouldn't have, and I never sugarcoat. That's one of my fatal flaws, right? But it's this model for every consultant, because this is a consulting skill set. Yes. This is a coaching skill set. It's a management skill set. It's a mentoring skill set. It's a leadership skill set. So powerful. Let me kind of just spin this around on its axis for a little bit. Because many folks listening, in addition to the fantastic speaking ideas that you're sharing, they also do coaching and consulting and mentoring. Is it a valid desire for client acquisition and client retention? Not only should employees say of their boss and of their company, I love it here, should our coaching clients and our consulting clients say, I love it here. I love it here that we're consulting with Clint. I love it here that Clint is doing a training. I love the environment under which Clint is coaching and mentoring and training us here today. Is that something that we need to aspire to as coaches, consultants, trainers, and speakers, that our little microculture during a customer experience or a client experience, we can learn from what you have in this book to be better coaches, consultants, and mentors, correct?
Yes, 100%. It's not about just saying, I love the coaching experience, but do they love who they are while they're coaching with you?
Yes.
Right? How do people experience you, and how do they experience themselves when they're with you?
Yes.
And it's not just, again, in the dialogue. It's not just in the content. It's not about your credibility or your ego or what stages you've been on. It's ultimately about, how are you going to connect me to my dreams? How are you getting to the part about me? And I think some of the greatest coaches in my life, mentors, true mentors, were beautiful at helping me see really two things. They helped me to see the possibilities. So potential would be number one. And second is that I'm good enough. I'm valued. Worth.
Yeah.
As a young kid, David, I had a hard time sitting still. I would just move. My right hand would just tap. My left hand would tap. And obviously that's a problem, because if
Yeah.
you're sitting in a meeting and it's constantly annoying, and everybody sees the problem. And I had a teacher one day, and his name was Mr. Jensen. And he told me to stay after class. He said, listen, he said, kid, I want to talk to you. Class leaves. I'm thinking I'm going to get kicked out of school as a 10-year-old. He pulls me up to the back of the room and he says, listen, everybody talks about you, man. You're the kid that's on the list. Like, you tap in my class, you tap in everybody else's class. He said, but I've watched you. He said, it's crazy. You'll take a pen and you'll start writing with your right hand, and then you tap with your left hand. And then you'll switch the pen and you'll start writing with your left hand, and then you can tap with your right hand. He said, I think you're ambidextrous. And I was like, no, I'm Presbyterian. He said, no. He said, no, that's not what it means. No. He said, can you tap your head and rub your belly? And I said, yeah. And I could do it without thinking about it. And he said, can you switch that? He said, can you rub your head and then tap your stomach? And I, literally, without thinking about it, I could do it. And he smiled and he looked at me and he said, I don't think you're a problem. I just think you're a drummer. Some people hear that and they go, what's the difference between those two things? But he created a moment. And I think that in great coaching and great mentorship, those individuals are beautiful master crafters at creating moments in the lives of people. Because in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back in his desk and he opened up the top drawer and he reached inside and he took out my very first pair of drumsticks and created a moment that represented potential and worth. And he said, I want you to keep these in your hands as much as you can. And that was 22 years ago. And for 22 years, David, I have had the opportunity to play all over the world as a professional drummer. I've been on America's Got Talent, played drums with Carrie Underwood, Tim McGraw. I remember I graduated high school and I had no idea what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And so what do you do when you graduate high school and you have no clue? You go to college, right? I went to school and I graduated in 2012 with a bachelor's degree and zero college debt. And that was from music scholarships. And the point I'm trying to make is, I'm not trying to list all the accolades and have people go, oh, wow, good for you, Clint, or what a story. I want people to realize the impact of what one person can do and the lives of another person by simply believing, by simply showing and showcasing opportunity instead of the problems. Yes, we need the candid conversations, but we need to show people what could be. And sometimes that's all it takes. And he changed my life forever.
Wow. 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 Now, do you drum in your keynotes? Do you drum on stage now?
I do. So I tell that story at times, third person. They have no idea that I'm the kid. And then we reveal the drums. And I sit down and we just rock the house. And it gives people the chance to see what influence can look like. Because above all, I mean, in management or in coaching, like, yes, there's the profit and the product and the business side. But ultimately, my goodness, we're trying to influence lives. We're trying to help people write a better story.
Yeah.
And it's been a beautiful thing to be a part of, to add that entertainment side to the show, also the content, but to provide a moment, an experience where people go, I want to be a Mr. Jensen.
What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. I want to go back to the book writing process for you, because another thing that I think is going on here is not only are you doing a lot of deep dive research, not only have you distilled this research into methodology, training, tools, practices, and principles that we can all use, you have a really cool way of, frameworks and the 5 Cs, and you have these models and methods in which you put your intellectual property to make them more digestible and more accessible and more relevant and actionable. Where do you learn that skill? How did you learn that skill? And then where else does it show up in your book and in your work?
Yeah, I would say 100% it's because of my board of mentors. Any success that I have achieved in this career or in any other industry is because of other people, is what they have helped to expedite and save in costs and money and frustration by learning from other people's triumphs and failures. I was a wrestler in high school, and my dad always, every Friday night, would take me to watch the varsity wrestling match. And it was Friday night, right? And that's kind of a drag for a high school kid because that's date night. Let's go hang out with the friends. And I remember I gave my dad a little bit of grief, and it's like, I don't want to go. And he said, listen, kid, he said, do you want to be a great wrestler? Do you want to be a great wrestler? And I said, well, yeah. And he said, then you have to hang out by the mat. You have to hang out by the mat. I think it was a principle that taught me a lot because I found people in this industry, our industry, the speaking industry, that were living and breathing the life that I wanted to live. They lived their message on stage. They lived their message off stage. They had a business that modeled what I wanted to do. They had a lifestyle that modeled my type of a lifestyle. And I did whatever it took to associate with them. And that simple practice of being willing to do whatever it takes to associate with astonishing people has expedited and I think helped me become, again, if I've ever achieved any level of success, somewhat more success in my career. You know this guy, David, Mark Scherenbrock.
Yeah.
Mark was one of those guys for me. And I had just quit my job and I was getting ready to jump into the speaking world. And I had known about Mark. And Mark had spoke to kids for years and transitioned through education into the corporate field. And I found out that he was going to be at Influence, the big speaker convention for NSA. And I remember my dad telling me, you got to hang out by the mat and you should do whatever it takes to associate with astonishing people. So I bought a ticket. I flew to Influence just to meet Mark Scherenbrock because I needed help. I wanted to go to the top, the people that were doing what I wanted to do. And there he was in the hallway of Influence. And he was talking to Mark Sanborn, Scott McCain, and then one other individual that I didn't know, but big time speakers, all Hall of Fame speakers, like very well known in this industry. And I went up and I was so nervous and I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, Mark Scherenbrock, my name is Clint Pulver. You have no idea who I am, but I just quit my job and I flew thousands of miles to talk to you. Do you have any time during this conference that I can just steal a few minutes? And he looked at his watch and he said, let's do it right now. And we went and we sat in the hallway of Influence and he just poured into me. For 45 minutes, Mark gave his time. And it was a moment that he created that represented mentorship, advocacy, all the things that we're talking about. And an interesting thing here too is I sent Mark a thank you note with a little Jamba Juice gift card. And he wrote back and he said, Clint, in 20 years, I have never had anybody handwrite me a note and tell me thank you for their time. And he said, anytime you need anything, you let me know. And that story is not about me bragging about how I wrote a thank you note, but it is the power of relationships. It is the power of doing what it takes to associate with great people. But also, if they give you their time, show some appreciation, show some gratitude. And it has opened up that relationship to where if I had a question, I could call Mark on the phone. Mark is a dear friend and he became a mentor in my life. And so things like book writing and stagecraft and speaking in the business, I've been able to tap into his experience because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so create your board of mentors as a speaker and it'll help.
Can we share some love with some of your other board of mentors members?
Absolutely.
Who else is on the list?
Phil Jones. Hands
Wonderful.
down, Phil Jones. He is a legend. Phil is in the same management group as me. We share Karen in the CMI group. He's fantastic. Also, Vin Zhang is another really close friend. I have to give a shout out to Jason Hewlett, Ty Bennett, Chad Hymas, 3 of my brothers. And man, I owe them so much. And they have believed in me since day one. They have been there. They have given me their time. And all just fantastic, phenomenal speakers and good humans. So Those would be definitely the tops right now.
I love it. See, we rarely give that Oscar acceptance speech here on the show, but there's like, I want to thank my mom. I want to thank my agent. I want to thank Phil Jones. I want to thank Chad Hymas.
Yes, yes. That's totally what this is. And they really have helped me a lot.
No, that's critically important. And one thing that I want to acknowledge in your journey and encourage our listeners, and I was so bullheaded and so stupid early on, even outside of NSA. I had friends, I had mentors, I had people who were looking out for my success. And they said to me, David, what do you need? David, how can I help you? Yeah. And here's what I said. I was broke, I was stupid, and I was full of ego. I said, no, Clint Pulver, you know what, dude? I'm good. I don't need anything right now. I'm awesome. And I wasn't awesome. I was far from awesome. I was confused. I was stuck. I was broke. But proud. Like, no, I got it covered, having had nothing covered. Yeah. So I think there's an element of strength and there's an element of wisdom. Whenever someone now asks me, and I'm way more successful back then when the first question was being asked, I now hold myself to a standard that if anyone ever asks me, David, what can I do for you? David, how can I help? David, is there anything that you need? My automatic impulse is I have to accept. I have to ask him something. Yeah. It's the most powerful, most successful, most meaningful people who ask for help and are open to receiving it.
Yes.
So how early on with you, because you had all this accomplishment and you had all this, success, what tapped into that humility that say, you know what? Every mentor, every friend, every resource that's going to be available to me, I'm going to open myself up to receive. I mean, was that even a process for you, or was that kind of how you're wired?
I think my dad always told me my dad's a fairly significant person in my life, but he always said, Clint, you learn, you earn, and you return. You always be learning. And if you earn anything in this world, you make sure that you return that threefold. You learn, you earn, and you return. Yeah. So that was something that I was taught very young. But also, Liz Wiseman, she has a great book. It's called Multipliers. She talks about rookie mode. And, the moment that you think that you know it all is the moment that you have failed. And we should stay in rookie mode. And I've tried to always remember that. Always be in rookie mode. First reason that comes to mind is because everybody wants to help a rookie. I remember when I very first started and somebody calls me, and I've always tried to live my life by this little mantra: stay sensitive and everybody deserves a phone call. Stay sensitive, gosh darn it. I don't care how successful you are. Remember when you first began and the people that gave you time, and stay sensitive to people. And so approaching in rookie mode, always being open and willing to learn, first off, just creates an environment for better learning. And second, it creates an opportunity for better relationships. And I've seen that totally become a reality for me.
Really amazing. Well, I've got two final questions for you. The final question is, how can people get connected and stay connected to the Clint Pulver Empire and the I Love It Here book and the I Love It Here movement? But even before we get to that, if folks were to take one central idea away from our conversation today about places that people love to work and managers and leaders and mentors that people love to be around and where they love themselves when they're in contact with that person, what would that one big takeaway final thought that you'd like to leave people with? What would that be?
I found in our research that for the most part, good leaders, they know what they need to do. Same thing in speaking kind of translate. Most speakers know what they need to do, right? I got to get a website. I got to get a demo video. I got to have a good message that solves a problem. But the great leaders and the great speakers, I feel like they know what they need to stop doing. We're really good in this industry and in the business world at stacking and piling and becoming busy. We deem busyness as success. I did 100 events last year. We deem that as successful. Where, I don't know, I think if we take a minute and we stop trying to boil the ocean and we start making more of the to-don't list than we do the to-do list, the more impactful we can become. And the people that we speak to, the relationships that we have. What do you do in the morning when you wake up? Do we grab our cell phone and start scrolling through the Instagram and looking at, all of our emails, or we turn to the person next to us and tell them how much we love them? It's a simple thing, and I haven't been married forever, but marriage is grand, right, David? But divorce is about $100 grand.
Nice.
And it's that simple principle of, again, where are we putting our time? How can we say no to a few more things so that it will allow us to say yes to the stuff that really matters? And that's what I've seen. And when mentors connected by giving time, that's how they spell it, right? Time. They don't spell that well, but that's how they spell it. Give time. And how do you expect to connect with anybody when you're trying to boil the ocean? Figure out the things that
Yes.
you could stop doing that will allow you to do more.
So powerful. Totally love it. Well, Clint Pulver, how do people get connected and stay connected to all the cool things that you're up to? Where do they get their hands on I Love It Here? And give us the full scoop. Where can we send people?
Yeah, so the book's available on Amazon right now. You can pre-order it. Just type in "I love it here," and you can connect with me on my website, clintpulver.com. I'm also on Instagram, all the social media platforms. Happy to help anybody. I appreciate you, David, and your support and your time. And I really have. I've been a big fan of this show and have listened to it for a long time and appreciate all your support and what you do for the industry.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. So much appreciate you being here. And we have to have you back. There's more to the Clint Pulver story that needs to be uncovered. And we always have our favorite people back for more. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. More is coming.
Thank you, David.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.